Brad Biggs talks football with you.
Mully Haugh, Chicago Sports Radio 670 The Score. Brad Biggs, the football man of the Chicago Tribune, a long-time contributor to the station and a valued friend. And he joins us now on the Score Hotline, brought to you by Atturo, your all-weather tire, Atturo.com. Biggs-A!
Morning, Brad.
Morning, boys. What's going on?
Well, we lost Mrs. McCaskey. Virginia McCaskey passed away yesterday at the age of 102, and there have been all sorts of lovely tributes that have been sent out to her, and we've gotten a lot of texts and calls from people. Brad, I don't know what you have heard about the Bears ownership situation. I was told, I'm guessing 30 years ago, that there was a mechanism in place that when Mrs. McCaskey passed, the current ownership, the current generation of ownership, would be able to maintain the team. I don't know that it can go beyond that year. I was told that by Tim McCaskey a long time ago. Obviously, Michael has passed. Tim is gone himself. So I don't know if all of that still holds, but we're getting all sorts of questions about that. I think what we care about now is just kind of saying goodbye. All that stuff will be revealed in time. I'm sure you're getting a lot of that on your Twitter feed.
Yeah, it's talk about a life well lived for Virginia McCaskey, and it just extremely sharp. Still, at a very late age, right? And involved and active and around. I don't recall the last time I saw her. I don't think I saw her at a game this year, but that doesn't mean she wasn't at a game. But certainly in the previous year, around, always had a kind word for folks. Like there are people the three of us know that had poor experiences that were tainted one way or another in employment by the Bears, maybe were really unhappy with how their tenures with the Bears ended, that only have like glowing things to say about Virginia McCaskey.
No doubt about it, Brad. I mean, everybody had the proper level of respect to pay somebody who was the matriarch of this football team. In all your years covering the Bears, and I don't know that anybody out there has done it longer than you, how would you describe just the frequency with which she maybe showed up or was visible, or her role in making or being contributing to these big decisions? George McCaskey, the chairman, would reference his mother often, whether she was pissed off or not at different times throughout his tenure. But how would you, somebody who knows this beat and organization as well as anybody, describe her role in it?
Well, she was regularly at the facility probably up until, and when I say regularly, I'm saying you'd see her car there on a pretty regular basis. Shoot, probably up until she was about 90, I would think. And then you would see it periodically. And, of course, the last couple of years, I don't believe she was driving, but she was around, and I don't think she was making, let's be real here, I don't think she was choosing some of these key hires here in the last few years, but would be kept abreast of the situation, would want to know why certain decisions were being made. As recently as a decade ago, like she would ask the occasional question of a general manager, of someone else in the building. So, had her hand in it, and it obviously meant an awful lot to her.
Brad, so we look at moving on to the Super Bowl, we look at the game this weekend. Have you made a choice? Have you picked the game, and who would you favor if you were a gambling man?
Yeah, I think I mentioned it last week. Early on, I kind of like the idea of what Vic Fangio and the Eagles could do with that defense. That I just have so much respect for Vic and how he gets that team to play. But then I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, okay, like edge to Vic. Although you have a whole lot of respect for Steve Spagnuolo. Like, it's not like Vic's just a KO winner over the Chiefs defensive coordinator here. That's not the case because Spagnuolo does a fantastic job too. But on the other side, you're going to go with Vic, but then you're going against Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, and there were points this season which I didn't think Jalen Hurts was playing very well at all, and lately he has been. So I've sort of flipped around on my original thinking. Fortunately, I didn't have to make a pick previously, and I would go, Kansas City 24-20. Just mighty hard to go against the Chiefs in this one.
One of the better matchups will be Trey Smith and Jalen Carter, two guys and players who Bears fans will keep a close eye on. One, because the guy who got away is Jalen Carter. The guy who might be on the way is Trey Smith. We talked to Brian Baldinger yesterday, who described him in a way that obviously a lot of people who've been watching tape would describe Trey Smith. Brad, it's way early. It's about a month away from free agency. Have you heard anything this week, as Trey Smith has gotten a lot of attention during Super Bowl week, that would lead you to believe one way or another whether or not the Chiefs will let him hit the open market?
I know that back during the fall, the expectation was that there was no shot that Trey Smith would get out of Kansas City. I think thinking there has shifted. The Chiefs have got a host of young guys they've got to be able to do something with, and Trey Smith's just one of them. You've got Trent McDuffie, the cornerback, George Karlaftis, the defensive end, and the linebacker, Nick Bolton. He's another one. And there could be some more. And it's what's known as a good problem to have when you draft well and you develop players. You get in a jam, and you can't always keep all of them. And so I think there's a chance. And there's also, like, the guard pay has exploded here recently, guys, and it has gone north of $20 million a season for the top guys, and you will not have trouble finding folks throughout the league that's a little scary for them, because it wasn't too long ago that the interior of the offensive line was viewed as a spot where you could pay a little less, plug guys in, and you paid your tackles. But if you're of the mindset that you need a firm pocket and you've got very little on the shelves at your shop, which is, in this case, the shop would be Halas Hall, maybe you're not bothered by that price tag, because Trey Smith, if he makes the open market, will be far and away the best interior lineman down at the offensive line store.
I'm curious if you look at, like, what's next. It was good to see or to hear Andy Reid throw a bouquet to Ben Johnson, whether he meant to or not. It was good to see him honored as the assistant coach of the year. What is next for him with the Bears as they've put together the staff? I'm sure they're going over a lot of different things. We know the combine is coming up. How are things progressing from what you're hearing?
Well, I think you've got to accomplish a couple things here. You've got to complete assembly of the coaching staff, and then you've got to have personnel meetings going over your roster, like everybody you've got, And when you finish that, that'll help guide you a little bit as you're getting ready for some other key things that are going to pop up, right? I don't know how involved the coaches will be at the combine. They could be there in full force. They could be busy in Lake Forest, kind of doing their own thing, and leave that to personnel folks. That's something maybe we'll learn here moving forward in the future, but they need to get an intimate understanding of the players they have under contract, get a good understanding of the players they have that'll be coming out of contract, and therefore get themselves up to speed for free agency in March and further down the road, the draft.
Do you vote in any awards, and how surprised were you at the MVP and or Coach of the Year last night?
I do not vote. I was a little surprised at the MVP because it just seemed like there was some steam for Lamar Jackson there late in the season. But, that being said, at the start of the year, before the year started, I looked at that Bills offense and I looked at who Josh Allen was going to be throwing the ball to. I'm like, who are the wide receivers here? Like, how is this going to work? What's it going to look like? And I thought the Bills would have a considerable step back offensively this season, just because it looked like the kind of wide receiver room that the Bears would put together back in the day. It just wasn't impressive. So, a super close vote. You had to expect that.
Brad, what do you make of Ashton Genty telling everybody that he, wouldn't mind going to Chicago? Everybody thought he wanted a warm weather destination. He said he's had his eyes on the Bears and he likes what they're building. Obviously, he's talking about being.
Has he looked at the offensive line? I mean,
and he would take away from that.
I think he's looked at the salary slot at the number 10 spot.
Yeah, I think that's as far as he's gotten.
I mean, he wants to be drafted as high as possible. Why settle your aim at number 10? I don't see any way they can take him. And Bears fans that have been complaining about the performance of the offensive line and or depth and production by the defensive line, you can't have it. This isn't Burger King. You can't have it your way. You got to have one or the other. So I would think they will invest on the line. And Ben Johnson's the coach, right? He's not the personnel guy. He's going to have some input, you would imagine, especially on those higher picks. They're going to talk about traits and stuff that he likes. But look at how they did it in Detroit. They parts to that offensive line were acquired before a lot of these skill position targets that now make the fancy plays and rack up the yardage and made them the highest scoring offense in the National Football League. So I think they've got to focus in the trenches. And truth be, this isn't a good running back draft. This is a great running back draft. You don't get the top guy. Go do a deep report on 6 or 8 of these other running backs that are going to be around on day 2. Look at some guys that are going to be around on day 3 that would normally be picked significantly higher, but because there's such a collection of talent at the position in this draft class, if you're doing your job right and you got just a little bit of luck, you're going to come out of it with a pretty good running back without having to use the 10th overall pick.
DJ Moore and Roma Dunze made the rounds on Radio Row the other day in New Orleans, and one of the things that DJ Moore was quoted as saying, and we played it yesterday, had some fun with it, was that when asked about a receiver they might want to bring into the room, Cooper Kupp's name came up. Wasn't Keenan Allen, it was Cooper Kupp. I'm just curious, That seems implausible to you, I'm guessing. What do you think in terms of
non-starter? Yeah,
is it a non-starter?
Non-starter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any veteran wideouts in the room coming? Is that a non-starter?
I think they could get a veteran, but we're not going to play, fantasy football superstar here for their third wide receiver. Like that's not going to be what they're going to do. That's the Cooper Kupp to the Bears. I would classify that as a waste of time right now. Like, here's who I'd look at. I'd look at Tim Patrick. Okay, I'd look at Tim Patrick, who played on a vet minimum deal for the Detroit Lions this past season because he had a couple of years prior to that wiped out by injury. 2023 Achilles, 2022 ACL. As a role player in Detroit, has like 400 yards, 3 touchdowns, bigger body guy. I think he could do some different things, and he's been highly productive previously in his career. A couple 700-yard seasons as a member of the Denver Broncos. Guy that's going to be able to step in, have some knowledge of what's going on, and they probably don't have to pay him a ton. I know Tim Patrick doesn't move the needle like Cooper Kupp or Keenan Allen or whoever, but that's something that makes more sense, and for a couple different reasons.
All right, well, let's stop playing fantasy football. Is Myles Garrett then the guy? Never mind. I'm just making a joke. I'm making a joke.
Yeah, I had to. You guys brought up the Myles Garrett thing the other morning. I had to get the emergency sirens going.
Well, thank God you're there for us, Brad, because we would be we wouldn't have any semblance of reality.
I'm just trying to keep you guys away from drifting too far into fantasy land.
Okay, that's good.
Oh, you're the best. All right, buddy. Thank you. We appreciate it.
Enjoy the weekend.
Yeah. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the game on Sunday, guys.